Hello everybody, welcome to Caleb the Great. Today, we're going to be talking about my top 15 movies from 2022. I watched a lot of movies this year, 34 to be exact, and I initially planned on covering them all in a single video, but that would take too much time, so we've cut it down to the top 15. I think this way I'll be able to talk about them a decent amount, because I think all these films are ones that deserve to be talked about to some extent. So, here we are. We'll start at the bottom of the list at number 15. Avatar: Way of Water. See, James Cameron was away, hiding, crafting this movie for over 10 years. And I think it came out pretty good. I think the first thing we should obviously talk about is the CGI. It's phenomenal, it looks great, and it does help with the film. I mean, what you're seeing on screen is completely made in a computer, but your brain forgets that, and it really brings you into this world. As far as the story goes, I think for a 3-hour movie, it almost overstays its welcome because not a lot happens. And that's fine, because most of these scenes are really well done, and it's, for the most part, entertaining, but I would have liked to see, more of a grander story, given that that's I feel like what this movie's supposed to be. But it does do some great decisions, like having this movie take place pretty far after the original, I think helps with rounding out Sully's character and making him really feel like a part of the Na'vi, and of course bringing in this whole new cast of characters of all the kids who we'll see develop through all these films. Anyways, this was a good movie. I enjoyed it, and I do want to see more from the franchise. I'm not the hugest fan of it or anything, but I think this one sets up the groundwork to create some pretty excellent movies. The Woman King. I didn't really know what to expect with this one. I guess I was hoping for some decent action and a big budget plot. And in many ways I did get that, but the main thing that surprised me was the outstanding performances. Viola Davis goes hard in this movie. She's able to handle so many different scenes so well. And her co-stars are great too. I think the younger actress, I don't know her name, but her and Viola's chemistry was really the heart of the film for me. As far as the story goes, it's pretty great. I mean, there's a lot of things happening and it handles it all very well. There were some weaker points, like there was a romance plot that definitely was necessary to the overall story, but in itself was really uninteresting. There were a lot of action movies this year, but this one was well shot and exciting, and each scene felt very unique, so it was able to stand out to me. Not a lot to say about this one. I mean, just a really decent story with great acting and great action. Bullet Train. This movie's insane. I mean, the action, the writing, the acting, everything is so crazy and I love it. The setting of a train and its winding story are really its strong points. Besides, of course, its action. I mean, every scene felt so unique. It's not just fistfights. They're always using elements of their setting, throwing things around. There's this great part where they're fighting with like this snake venom. The only part of the movie I didn't like was the beginning, maybe first 20 minutes. It really has trouble getting started and seems pretty uninteresting. Plus, a lot of the comedy really didn't land in this section for me. And overall, the comedy isn't my favorite, but later on, I didn't mind most of it. What I did really like is the whole cast of characters, my favorite being twins. I mean, they had some great emotional beats, and that ended up being my favorite part of the movie. And the rest of the characters are pretty cool too. I mean, I like Brad Pitt's character, and the villain was pretty decent. And it was just a really crazy movie, and I think it really succeeded in what it was trying to do. The Batman. There is a lot in this movie to love. To start off, I'm a big Paul Dano fan, and he was great as the Riddler. Along with Robert Pattinson as Batman, I love the new take on it. I mean, with over a half a century of Batmans on screen, this one was able to stand out pretty well. And the general new take on Gotham is great. The tone and atmosphere is one of my favorite parts of the film, and it really just felt like a gritty, dirty city. But it's also very beautiful. I mean, the cinematography throughout the entire thing was fantastic. And the car chase, whew, perfect. And it's those action scenes that help fill out this kind of very slowly paced movie. The slow pace is something that people might not like, and I understand that. But I think a story with this many characters and this many twists and turns needs this much screen time. And it really is the end that does it for me, not just the final conclusion to the mystery, but after that. My only problems with the film would spoil it, so I won't really get into that, but overall there wasn't anything major that I disliked about it. Barbarian. Now this is how you make a movie. First thing I noticed is how this movie is shot so well. It uses the camera in every scene to tell the story. And the story is great. I mean, writing in individual scenes is so precisely done. It's able to break a lot of horror tropes. In so many horror movies, you're yelling at the characters, don't go down into the basement, and that's what this movie's pretty much about, going down into the basement. But in this movie, the characters are well written enough, and they have enough motivation where their actions don't ever seem ridiculously stupid. Parts I didn't like were at the end when it gets a little tropey and the monster is definitely more of an action monster. But besides that, it's really solid. Barbarian is one of the most suspenseful horror movies I've ever seen, and it has a decent amount to say as well. Nowhere compared to the next movie, which is Nope. Chilling. I mean, wow, Jordan Peele was able to knock it out of the park with this one. I'm not the biggest fan of horror movies, but this is exactly what I want a horror movie to be. Start off with, like, a lot of horror movies operate in very claustrophobic spaces, but this one flips it on its head and puts you in this very wide open valley, but still just as terrifying, if not more so. And the horror isn't even the best part of the movie. It's Jordan Peele's commentary that really made it for me. It's the way he's able to layer it and set it up on so many levels that makes it so interesting. And I don't love all the characters, but OJ, the main guy, so well written and so well acted. And I won't spoil the ending of this movie, but that's definitely one of my favorite parts. It's just the spectacle of it all. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This one was a surprise. I mean, I went in with some expectations given I saw it had a decent animation style and there was some hype in the air about the film, but I did not think it would be this great. I mean, first off, this film is able to stand so well on its own, while also having the perfect amount of echoings from previous films in the franchise. One thing that could have turned out bad was the amount of characters this movie has. I mean, there's kind of 3 main groups of antagonists, but it's able to handle it so well. The ones I loved the most was Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. I mean, a super great emotional story. And you have Little Jack, who is hilarious, one of the funniest parts of the movie in my opinion. And the highlight, Death himself, such a cool character, one of the coolest DreamWorks villains ever. I mean, he's genuinely scary, and I do wish we would have had a little more screen time with him, but Puss and his, conflict, that's the best part of the movie for me. The super cool looking animation, the storytelling, the awesome characters, I mean, it's all there. DreamWorks seems to be at a higher level of quality right now. I can't wait to see what they come up with next. The Banshees of Inisherin? I love this movie. It starts off by throwing you into this conflict between these 2 friends on this sad little island off of Ireland. And it's funny, and it's sad, and it's dramatic, and it does so many things. But it's able to handle these tones so well. I mean, its serious moments aren't ever ruined by its comedic ones. And I credit this largely to Colin Farrell's performance and his eyebrows performance. He delivers the sad, emotional, raw moments of the film just as well as he does the comedic, dry humor moments of the film. Also, the setting is so depressing but also so unique, and they're able to create the world of this island so well. From all the characters, the wide, beautiful shots of the island, I love it all. And there's also a lot of little subtle things that I love, like the backdrop of the war and all the different small relationships that the people of the town have. I don't know, just getting caught up in these characters' lives for a few hours is just something I really love. The Northman. Robert Eggers is definitely one of the great directors of our time. I mean, I loved Lighthouse, I loved The Witch, and I was super excited to see this one. And much of the excitement was based in the fact that this is like a new type of movie. His last two were very small scale horror movies, and this is more of a, grandiose plot that feels like it was pulled right out of Norse mythology. But there's also some signatures of Robert Eggers with his defined color palette and amazing cinematography. It's truly a beautiful film. And there are some elements of horror there which are really fantastic. Like the parts with Willem Dafoe and Bjork, they're like really creepy. And did I mention Willem Dafoe and Bjork just show up for a few minutes, do some crazy stuff, and then just leave? It's fucking fantastic. It has such a great main character. I mean, the development he faces throughout his entire life, from all the turmoil and loss and gains of relationships that he has, is fantastic. And one little thing I had to mention is the action is great. It's very gruesome yet stylized. It all comes together in the final scene. Jackass Forever. I almost didn't add this to the list just because it's a non-narrative movie. It doesn't fit with the rest of them that well, but oh my god, is it funny. And it's a pretty important movie for the year. I mean, seeing this beloved movie series come back with so much of the cast, it's super great. And the cast is great. I mean, they're doing some pretty crazy stuff given how old they are, and it's not as crazy as what they were doing when they're 20, but it's still hilarious and exciting and super cool. And the new cast is great. They were all super funny, and they all did some pretty crazy stuff. I mean, I don't really know what to say. If you like Jackass, you'll like this movie, and I really love Jackass, so that's why it's on this list. Aftersun. I actually just watched this one last night. I mean, I held off this entire video just so I could add this one to the list, and oh god, I'm so glad I did. This is the most personal film of the year. I mean, it conveys such a unique feeling that's brought through by its cinematography, acting, and pacing. It's very slice of life, but it's also able to have such a broad message, and I think that really comes down to the perspective that it's trying to show. It's giving the perspective of childhood, and it works so well. Frankie Corio gives a great performance, especially this is I think her first film, and she's so young. It's fantastic. The cinematography is beautiful and also meaningful. There's so many shots that just stuck with me. Also, Paul Mescal is great. The chemistry between the two co-stars is, what's at the heart of the film. They really do feel like, a father and a daughter. I love this movie. And I can tell that the people behind it, especially director Charlotte Wells, loved it too. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. This is a silly little film about a silly little shell with his silly shoes living his silly little life. And it's the best thing I've ever seen. This movie uses a unique mix of stop motion and live action, which I love. And it makes it very small scale for its story and setting, but for its emotional parts, it's so large and phenomenal. It's also super funny, and it all comes from Marcel. He's such a genuine and cute character. I love him so much. And the voice acting is great. I've seen this actress Gina Slate in smaller roles, but seeing her having her own movie almost to herself was fantastic. Also, with the unique animation style, it's able to do so many beautiful micro shots, which I just love. It's silly and tragic and beautiful, and I just want to see more like this. I'm really glad I got to see this one in theaters. Tar. Tar is a monumental film. I mean, every scene, every line of dialogue is utilized to feather around and fill out this character. A character who's so complex and interesting, played by Cate Blanchett, and I say this with 100% certainty, this is the best performance of the year. This movie deals with so many modern topics, but it handles it with such care in a way that I hadn't seen in any other film. Tar feels like a real person from the modern world, but it's through the extremely detailed look at her life that they're able to create such interesting commentary. And of course, being a movie about music, it has a fantastic score. A score that mirrors Tar's descent. This movie had me engrossed in its story and every line of dialogue, all the way up to its chilling ending. I mean, truly fantastic. Babylon. This was my most anticipated movie of the year. Damien Chazelle, director of La La Land and Whiplash, making a movie with Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt about early 20s, 30s cinema. How could it get any better? And you know what? It wasn't what I expected. I mean, some parts, yeah, but this was an experience that I had no idea I would have. I love that more than anything. This movie is out of control. Each scene is constructed to be so exciting, and the music helps so much of that. I mean, music has always been a part of Chazelle's films, and this one's no exception. I mean, fire song after fire song. And that brings so much excitement, but those exciting moments are contrasted by the quiet, personal moments of the film. It had some really sad stuff with these tragic characters. And it keeps on throwing all of this at you, with the sad moments, the exciting moments, and even some comedy. All the way to the completely fantastic ending. And the attention to details everywhere, and the cinematography and the acting, and also the historical details. This period in cinema history is definitely one that's always interested me, so of course I love this movie. And you know, I could go on about this movie for days, but I must move on to my number one movie of 2022. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is the best movie of the year, and one of the best movies I've ever seen. I just rewatched this for the video because the film came out in the beginning of the year, and I noticed just how the film is made brings tears to my eyes. It's so great. I mean, I don't know where to start with this one. It's all so perfect. I guess the characters, I mean, they're all so sympathetic and real. You want to see them grow so bad, and they do in such a natural way. And it's the relationships that they have with each other that build each character's arc. The story is so cool, using the multiverse stuff in a very clever way, especially compared to other films this year. And it's all enhanced by the visual effects. And yes, I would say that Avatar is the best visual effects of the year technically, but this is showing what visual effects can do for storytelling. And that's the key of any movie. All the elements are in service of the story. I mean, every part of the frame is so well constructed down to the makeup, which I think really comes out in the main, antagonist of the film. And it's also hilarious. And it's able to pack in a bunch of super funny stuff with a bunch of super serious stuff, and it doesn't mess anything up. And all the acting is so well done. It breaks the expectations and tropes of film in so many ways and shows what cinema can truly be. It's rare that a film like this would even be made. I just hope that the success of this film will allow, creative, unique ideas like this to become commonplace. I gave this movie 5 stars, which I've rarely given any films, but I think in the future we'll look back on this movie and see, the perfection of it and how it really changed the medium. 2022 was a pretty interesting year for movies, and I wish I could have talked about more of them. There's some I didn't get a chance to see before making this video that I'm sure would have made it into the top 15. And I would also like to talk about some of the bad movies of 2022. I might do that in the future. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this, and more movie review content coming soon.